Hi, hello, welcome. Hi, everyone. Empowering True Crime Alex here. Yes, I know I'm chipper. Not about this, but just about life. So we're going to come down real soon. Oh, you can hear me. Good. We're about to go real serious mode in just a minute. But while we're waiting, I'm going to pull up a timeline. Let me know where you are in the world. I am in Miami, and I know I have people from Florida. I know I've got some folks in out in California. Let me know. And also, what do you think? What do you think? I mean, I've just been doing so much research here today for you guys. So while we wait, I'm gonna pull up the some articles, and we'll be able to share what is the latest. Okay, so what I wanted to start off with is, and also, by the way, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you did, and also if you hit the thumbs up, that's really going to help. My channel is new-ish, and I really want to get message of covering true crime from a more empowering angle, more empathetic, more victim-focused angle. Okay, so let's begin with a timeline. Type in the chat if you know about this case, if you've been studying it, if you've been watching information on it, or where you're at. And then we'll begin in just a moment to share the timeline. All right, let's just begin here. This is the timeline. And by the way, I'm on CNN right now. You see, I have a lot of tabs open because there is some latest information. CNN has been covering this live as well, and they've got the latest information. So for those of you just need to get up to speed, this is super really detailed and really great kind of synopsis of the timeline of what happened. So the name of the submersible is the Titan. And the company that actually the ship that took the group that was going down to the Titanic is called the Polar Prince. And it says here that they departed from St. John's, Newfoundland on Friday, June 16th. And then on the 17th, they arrived at the dive site. And on Sunday, June 18th, at 9 a.m., the dive operation started. Now, you guys, they were supposed to go down to the Titanic, be there for a few hours, and then come back up by 6:10 was the originally scheduled time to resurface. They lost communication at 11:47. It says here the last communication between the vessel and surface staff of Ocean Gate, which is the group that puts on the tour, the group that was conducting the expedition, was recorded 11:47. So it takes approximately 2.5 hours, is my understanding, to get down to the Titanic from the surface. It's about 12,500 feet. And the team that went down there hasn't been heard of since 11:47 a.m. 6:10 is when they were supposed to come back to the surface, right? So if they get there, they start at 9, they get there, let's say, I think I said it would have been about, let's say, 2.5 hours to get there, 2.5 hours back. They really would have only been there for a not even a handful, 3 hours maybe, 3.5 hours at the site of the Titanic. And then they were called, the authorities were called at 6:35 p.m. So before we go in, there's a couple of questions I have. And what questions do you have? Adita, you say, since there's no pinging or noise being heard in the ocean, I suspect they might not, I imagine is what you're saying. They might not be alive. Right. So we'll get into some of those ways that they could get a hold of people on the surface, right? So like you said, so some of the things that they can do is they can bang on the metal of the submersible, and that could create that vibration. If it's something that they could do that would obviously be a human-made sound, that's one way that sonar could pick up on on where they are. And so they have approximately up to 96 hours of oxygen. But here's the crazy part. If they're freaking out and using up extra oxygen, that time could cut down. So if they're really, professional and many of them on board are, it sounds like, adventurers, very well known to this space. One person was in space. This is not necessarily uncommon for them to kind of be in these types of dangerous positions, right? So who's on the submersible? I wanted to, let's see if it's, well, this is one of the gentlemen who's on the submersible. Hamish Harding. He is a British billionaire, and he's actually been to space. He's done numerous other types of dives. According to one of his explorer mates, he's been to the Mariana Trench. And so he is not necessarily unfamiliar with this type of territory of being down, in these risky environments. He said, "I'm proud to finally announce that I joined OceanGate Expeditions for their RMS Titanic mission as a mission specialist on the sub going down to the Titanic." And I'm just doing a time check because it's supposed to be 1 p.m. Eastern when the Coast Guard is going to do their live coverage. So we'll be covering that as well. He also said that PH Nargulet, and I don't know how to say that, it's a French word. He is actually somebody who has been doing missions down to the Titanic and other underwater missions for decades. So he is the specialist. He's the real specialist that's down with the team. So from doing some research, the submersible can only hold 5 people, or will only hold 5 people. And one is let me get his name. One is the CEO, who is, let me see if I can get you his name. I don't have it off. I forgot his name off the top of my head. Oh, here it is. Stockton Rush. He's a chief executive and founder of OceanGate Expeditions. Hamish Harding, who's this person, the British billionaire adventurer. Also, the French submariner, his name is Paul Henry Nargulet. That's the PH Nargulet. And then there's 2 other people who are paying, who is Shahzada Dawood, who is a Pakistani British businessman, and his son, Suleiman Dawood, were on board. So based on the research that I've done, there's usually 1 crew member from the company, 1 expert, we'll call it. In this case, it would be Mr. Nargulet, who's the submariner, the person who's done all these dives before. And then they have 3 paid individuals. And so Harding and Dawood and his son are the 3 paid crew members. And they are paying, it's been said, $250,000 each to be on board. But it sounds like there's not a lot of, let's call it, contingency in place for this submersible, and which is kind of wild. So I wanted to show you this. Let me know if you can't hear the sound. This is a CBS reporter who actually went down, and I thought this was kind of fascinating to show his account. Let's watch this for a few minutes. Oops. I always put it on fast. Here, let's do it here. You guys, they are controlling this with a game controller. And in another video, and I think I might have a video of that, he actually says he's got a couple of extras on board. So they're using a game controller to get there. But how? Because they don't have a GPS system. So they're supposed to be getting contact from above, from the ship above, via text message, and they lost communication. So where is the remote control going to take them? There's just so many things that don't seem safe. And I really hope that no matter what happens, I pray that that the entire ship is found and everybody on board is found alive, safe, and healthy and well. But the reality is that this has brought up a whole slew. I also watched how they control it. There's a whole slew of, you know, crisis management hasn't seems like it hasn't been thought of. Like if you're going down 12,500 feet, you better have. I mean, maybe the price of the tour should be $500,000, and you've got a Coast Guard. You know, you purchase, or whatever you call it, you buy time from the Coast Guard to be on site, or somebody who can do it, who could help in case something goes wrong. I mean, this is not, this was not from a contingency plan. Does not sound like it was very well thought out. Okay, so let's continue watching this. So if you're just tuning in, this was a CBS reporter who actually went on a dive with this team last summer. And the weather is a huge component. I mean, they're in the North Atlantic. It's still very cold. There's bad weather up there. And this is a very, very small window of time when they're able to go down. And so they actually did go down to on Sunday, but this team, they had some issues going down, and we're going to watch some of those now. Just a moment, and let me just do a quick time check. Okay, we've got a few minutes. So they went on their dive off of the continental. Oh gosh, what it was called, the shelf, and they just went down a couple dozen feet, and the floats came up, and they had to go back up. So the mission was ended. So yeah, it's we'll just wait here. Oh, skip that's great. Okay, so the dive in this particular case never found communication went down and they never found the wreck. They were lost for 2.5 hours. Okay. So that is wild. So that is the CBS Sunday Morning. If you want to watch that, I'll actually just put a link in the chat for you and you can watch that separately if you'd like. And so, okay. Let's go ahead. I'm going to check on the latest on, let's see. Oh, you're already seeing it. Okay. So we have our timeline. I'll just say run it real quick. On Sunday at 9 a.m., the dive started. At 11:47, communication ended with the surface staff. They were supposed to come up to the surface at 6:10, and at 6:35, the authorities were called. So that was a line on Sunday. They have up to 96 hours of air available, oxygen available. And a couple of other things here. I thought this was kind of cool. France sends ship with underwater robot to help with the search for the missing Titanic Tour submersible. Now there was an article that, let me see if it's this one. Okay, this was from the Mirror, and there's conflicting reports on this. So if anybody has seen anything, the latest on this, there is a company called the Magellan Limited, which has gone down to the Titanic, and they've taken a lot of video footage and such of the wreck, and they have the capability to go down there. And this article from the Mirror, which I don't completely trust this news source, but they said that it's being blocked by US officials who want to use, the US wants to use their own ships to go down. On the other hand, on CNN, the article that they said was, let me see if I can find it out. They actually said that, let's see if I can find it real quick. Okay, there's a lot happening, a lot of updates here. They said that that Magellan actually needs a special type of plane to take the equipment to the spot, or I don't know exactly where they would go. So CNN is saying that they haven't been able to find a plane large enough or equipped to be able to take all the equipment. But the Mirror article from the UK says that the US is blocking that. So I don't know which one to believe. I think CNN is a more reputable source than the Mirror, so I'll believe CNN or the Mirror. And let's see. So the 5 people who are on the ship are the founder of Ocean Gate. That's this gentleman right here, Stockton Rush. So he's on the Submersible. Hamish Harding, who's a British billionaire, he's on the Submersible. He's actually been to space as well. So he's definitely not a newbie as far as these types of risky, adventurous type of expeditions. You also have Paul Henry Narglot, who is a French submariner. He's acting as like the expert on board, who's going to be probably helping with, from a more of a scientific and a more professional standpoint, offering guidance and such. And then you have 2 other paid crew members, Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman, who are Pakistani British businessmen. So those are three paid members, a specialist, and the owner, the founder of Ocean Gate Expeditions. Okay, let's see. Now, this was kind of interesting. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there's this article right from Ocean Gate on why isn't Titan classed? And so there's this whole idea that this ship, or the sub, hasn't really gone through rigorous, I don't know if it's permitting is the right word, but class. It hasn't been, they're supposed to get classed, and this one hasn't gotten classed. And there's, some of their rationale is that the things that keep the ship or the submersible as safe as possible aren't even included in this validation process. So that was in 2019. So I call BS on that, because it's been 4 years. And I think that over 4 years, you should get your vehicles, your ships, your vessels classed. You should get them up to speed, up to the latest, the highest standards. And, so that's, there's just, now that you see what's happened in this particular instance, you can see why it's so important to have these types of rigorous measures in place. So you can go ahead and read more on that. I don't want to go through this whole thing. I'll post that into the chat as well. And this one was kind of cool. I wanted to watch this. This is the Coast Guard. They actually interview, this is a short little clip from News Nation. They actually interview a retired Coast Guard person about finding the missing sub. So let's listen here. Hold on. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. No, I don't think you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. I'm sorry. You weren't seeing what I was seeing. Okay. So let me stop screening that, and I will present this. Share screen. Okay, so let me back that up. And hi, I see that there's some new people in the chat. Hi, hello. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you subscribe and help me to get more visibility for this video and for other content that I create by liking this video. Very simple. I appreciate it. Okay, let's watch this. This is on News Nation, and let's watch this interview with a former Coast Guard.
In the meantime, here's what we know. 5 people were on board when this vessel went missing during a dive. They were touring or set to tour the wreckage of the Titanic, about 12,000 feet below sea level. Joining me now to talk more about the search and the magnitude of this type of operation, retired U.S. Navy Captain David Marquet. He's a former submarine commander as well. He is also the author of Turn the Ship Around, a true story of turning followers into leaders. Thanks for being with us this morning, Captain. I think in scenarios like this, they plan for every possible likelihood of events that could happen. Is this one of them, that it just disappears?
That the submarine just disappears?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think eventually we'll find them. It's a very tough problem. And we can eventually hook the submarine and raise it up to the surface, but it's a desperate race against time. It seems like they buttoned up about 48 hours ago, maybe 54 hours ago. So it was early Sunday morning. And so they've gone through about half of the oxygen that they have available to them. And if you imagine a spacecraft goes around the far side of the moon and doesn't come out, you got to find where they went. And then we got to get someone there to pull them up. They can't rescue themselves. They can't even open the hatch from the inside. It has to be open from the outside. So they're relying on the rest of us to find them and then get them back up to the surface.
Right. As I understand it, this submarine doesn't have GPS. They rely on those on the surface to know where they are. 400 miles off the Canadian coast. They're searching 900 miles as well, and about 12 to 13,000 feet deep. There are provisions that they would have had on board. Talk about what they might have if, and we pray, they are still alive and waiting for rescue.
Right. Well, number one, they have an oxygen supply that's designed to last for 96 hours. And they have what we call CO2 scrubbers. They scrub the carbon dioxide that we exhale out of the air. The design for those probably matches the length of the oxygen. So what they want to do is remain calm, take naps, reduce the amount of oxygen that they're breathing in and the amount of CO2 that they're breathing out, and try and extend that as long as possible. That's number one. Number two is, if possible, send a signal to where they're located. That will certainly help the rescuers with one of the big problems, which is finding them. They might have a pinger. That's a lot of submarines have pingers that we can turn on, underwater telephones, or simply banging on the hull with a wrench rhythmically. It sounds like it's human noise. And the sonar buoys that the Canadians and the Americans have dropped would then located, and we'd then be able to find them. What's troubling is we don't seem to be hearing those kind of noises.
To your first point, remain calm, take naps, try to use as little oxygen as needed. Easier said than done. How do you instruct people to remain calm when they are trapped in this capsule, possibly thousands of feet underwater, without, at least according to the website, a whole lot of training?
Yeah, I don't think the people that are on the ship are naive about what they're getting into. They're professional crew members, and the British explorer who's done other trips like this, including trips up into space. So I think of any group of humans that can probably do the right thing, my confidence is in them to be able to do this. But it's got to be, it's pitch black, it smells bad, it's scary, there's a lot of uncertainty. And so your brain, you really have to control your brain's activation in this case.
Right, and they have no control over the vessel, right? They can't steer it, guide it, or know where they're going or how fast.
You guys, this is crazy. How do you go into a vessel 12,500 feet under the surface of the water and can't maneuver? They can't even get out because they're bolted in. I mean, this is nuts. Definitely. I love Donald's. I'm going to bring that back up again. And I mean, just, like they said, they have been in business. They're not turning a profit. That should be an obvious sign they might not make enough to afford lots of stuff. So yes, it does sound like what the CBS reporter said is that they're MacGyvering, they're patching things together, and they're using a remote control. And he says that he has a couple of extra on hand, some replacements. But yes, so wow. Okay, so I am keeping tabs on the press conference. Usually those don't start on time, but we'll just go ahead and watch let's go back to this one right here. And if you're new to our channel, I see there's a few new ones here. Let me know in the chat where you're joining us from, where in the world you are. I am in South Florida, and it is a very hot day today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share let's see if we can share the CNN has really good up-to-date coverage of what's happening. Says here, soon officials will give an update on the search. Okay, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're waiting for. And okay. Excuse me. So France is sending an underwater robot. We're still waiting to hear about Magellan. Magellan is the other, the UK-based company that has gone down to the Titanic multiple times. We're still waiting to see if they're on their way to the site. Okay. Oh, this is the first time I see this. This is a statement from the company. They say, for some time, we have been unable to establish communications with one of our submersible exploration vehicles, which is currently visiting the wreck site of the Titanic. Our entire focus is on the well-being of the crew, and every step possible is being taken to bring the 5 crew members back safely. We are deeply grateful for the urgent and extensive assistance we are receiving from multiple government agencies and deep-sea companies as we seek to reestablish contact with the submersible. We pray for the safe return of the crew and passengers, and we will provide updates as they are available. Okay. Well, to me, that doesn't seem like there's any sense of urgency in that statement, but I don't know. What do you guys think? One of the things, I mean, the part that really blows my mind is that they don't seem to have any type of a contingency. Your contingency should not be getting the Coast Guard to save you. Your contingency should not be waiting for other countries to come in and save you. So the fact that they don't have, like, for example, I mean, I don't know one thing. I don't know anything about this type of company, but I would think maybe you would have like another submersible on hand that can go down in case they don't find the other one, right? Like the other one could have gone down to search for some. I don't even know how many they have, but what do you guys think? Is this crazy? Here, oh, hi, hello, Carmen in California. It just blows my mind. Oh, okay. So let's see here. Let me get this live. Okay. And started a couple of minutes ago. Okay. I do not hear sound. There you are.
I've been able to get available afterwards that we can take some additional questions that may not have been able to get to or may not answered fully to get your contact information, and our staff will be able to get back to you with that information. This time I'd like to welcome Captain Jamie Frederick, Response Coordinator in the 1st Coast Guard District.
Good afternoon. I'm Captain Jamie Frederick with the 1st Coast Guard District Response Department, which oversees search and rescue operations under Rear Admiral John Mauger, the 1st Coast Guard District Commander. I'll provide a brief recap of our coordinated search efforts for the 21-foot submersible with 5 people on board along with providing an update on current search efforts and plans for the next 24 hours. On behalf of all the men and women of the United States Coast Guard and our search partners, we offer our most heartfelt thoughts and prayers for the 5 crew members, their families, and their loved ones. Our crews are working around the clock to ensure that we are doing everything possible to locate the Titan and the 5 crew members. Yesterday, we stood up a unified command consisting of expertise from the United States Coast Guard, the United States Navy.
I just wanted to say that their connection is a little staticky, so I'm sorry about that. And I'm not sure why it's sounding so funky.
Canadian Army
Back it up a second.
from the United States Coast Guard, the United States Navy, Canadian Armed Forces and Coast Guard, and the Titan's parent company, Ocean Gate Expedition. This is a complex search effort which requires multiple agencies with subject matter expertise and specialized equipment. While the U.S. Coast Guard has assumed the role of search and rescue mission coordinator, we do not have all of the necessary expertise and equipment required in a search of this nature. The Unified Command brings that expertise and additional capability together to maximize effort in solving this very complex problem. We're out of order here. As a recap, on Sunday, the Coordination Command Center in Boston received a report from the Canadian expedition vessel Polar Prince of an overdue 21-foot submarine Titan with 5 people on board. The Titan was attempting to dive on the wreck of the Titanic approximately 900 miles east of Cape Cod and 400 miles south of St. John's, Newfoundland. Approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes into the scheduled dive, the Polar Prince lost all communication with the Titan. The Polar Prince conducted an initial search and then requested Coast Guard assistance. The U.S. Coast Guard in Boston assumed the responsibility of search and rescue mission coordinator and immediately launched search assets. Since Sunday, the Coast Guard has coordinated search efforts with the U.S. and Canadian Coast Guard, Air National Guard aircraft, and the Polar Prince, which has searched a combined 7,600 square miles, an area larger than the state of Connecticut. These search efforts have focused on both surface, with C-130 aircraft searching by sight and with radar, and subsurface, with P-3 aircraft were able to drop and monitor sonar buoys. To date, those search efforts have not yielded any results. Search efforts have continued through last night and today. Today, the vessel Deep Energy, a 194-meter pipe-laying vessel, arrived on scene with underwater ROV capability. They have rendezvoused with the vessel Polar Prince and commenced an ROV dive at the last known of the position of the Titan and the approximate position of the Titanic wreck. That operation is currently ongoing. Additionally, a Canadian P-3 aircraft is currently conducting a 6-hour search of the area, and several C-130 aircraft and another P-3 are scheduled to fly this afternoon and this evening. The Canadian Coast Guard cutter, or vessel, John Cabot, is scheduled to arrive later this evening, and several other Canadian Coast Guard vessels and the Coast Guard cutter Sycamore are en route. Additionally, the U.S. Coast Guard has the U.S. Navy's SUPSAL Supervisor of Salvage and Diving Command is working with U.S. Transportation Command to bring additional assets to the search area. These more capable assets will be staged out of St. John's for further transport to the search area. There are also several private vessels, research vessels with ROV capabilities that are making preparations to join the efforts. So I want to reiterate, this is a very complex search, and the unified team is working around the clock to bring all available assets and expertise to bear as quickly as possible in an effort to solve this very complex problem. We'll continue to provide updates as they become available. And again, our thoughts and prayers are with the crew and the families and their loved ones. We will provide unwavering effort as we continue the search. And I think at this time we'll open it up and take a few questions.
So they said they're doing an ROV dive. I tried to look it up. Does anybody know what that means?
So each of the ROVs, so that's kind of a vague question, right? The ROVs have different capability. It's our understanding the current ROV that is deployed at the site now has some limited capability. It has a camera on board, but again, each of those is different, and we'll be gathering more information as that operation goes on through the day.
Captain, how many hours of oxygen? If your submersibles can find this sub, is there any way to retrieve it and save the people on board?
Yeah, so right now, all of our efforts are focused on finding the sub. What I will tell you is we have a group of our nation's best experts in the Unified Command, and if we get to that point, those experts will be looking at what the next course of action is.
Captain, how many hours of oxygen left that you know that you can estimate now on the submersible? And does it have to be approved or regular?
Sure. So first of all, it's an estimate, right? Because we know from the data we were using as a starting point was 96 hours. We know at this point we're approximately about 41 hours.
41 hours left.
Yes.
And does it
Wow.
have to be approved or regulated to submersibles that go through anything that you know of?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact technical piece of that. We know there's about 40 hours of breathable air left based on that initial report. Again, that was just the initial report based on 96 hours from when the vessel.
Captain, even with that amount of time that's left, let's say 41 hours or so, if you were to find the submersible at this moment, would that give you enough time to save these 5 people on board?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. What I will tell you is we will do everything in our power to effect a rescue. Again, it's going to depend on if the ROV finds something. It's going to depend on what they find, what needs to be, what steps need to be taken next, and really that is for the experts within the Unified Command to take a look at and then decide what the best course of action is.
It seems to have taken other vessels, those other operations, about 8 hours to contact you at sunset after they lost contact with the sub. Is that a cause for concern?
Right now, our effort and our focus is on searching with what we know. As soon as we received the report on Sunday evening, we immediately launched search efforts. We flew assets that evening, and we've continued constant surface and air asset searches since that point. Go ahead. Well, this is a complex search, and it's complex for a variety of reasons. You're talking about a search area that's 900 miles east of Cape Cod, 400 miles south of St. John's. So logistically speaking, it's hard to bring assets to bear. It takes time, it takes coordination. And then we're dealing with, two pieces of, you're dealing with a surface search and a subsurface search. And frankly, that makes it an incredibly complex operation.
Captain, will the U.S. Navy or the Canadian Navy be able to get salvage equipment on time before the air runs out?
Obviously, getting salvage equipment on scene is a top priority. Unified Command is working through that to prioritize what equipment we can get there. There are ongoing operations right now via the U.S. Navy and Transcom to get equipment staged in St. John's and to get it on scene. I can't give you an exact timeline of when that's going to happen. What I can tell you is there is a full press equipment on scene as quickly as we can.
Is that equipment already on the East Coast, though? Or is it coming from the Pacific, for example?
No, so some of the equipment that's coming is coming from the East Coast, but again, we're talking about very heavy equipment. It's a complicated transport operation, but the best professionals in the world are working it, and that's U.S. Transcom.
Yeah, when it comes to the equipment, can you go into more detail? Do you have a Curve 21 that's being shipped over to that location? And since you don't have the fleet tug vessel, because the Apache was decommissioned, what other assets do you have? Do you have civilian ships?
Yeah, so like I said, there are several civilian ships that have offered services heading that way. There are additional Coast Guard cutters. We hope to have a Canadian Coast Guard cutter on scene this evening. We hope Polar Prince has been doing a great job with those duties, but if we could take some of that from them, that would be good. But your question about specific equipment, I'm not going to get into talking about specific equipment. Frankly, I'm not an expert on what that equipment is, but again, I can tell you we have experts in the Unified Command that are going through that, prioritizing what we need, and then how we get it on scene.
Can you tell us about the personnel from Boston? How many people from here are out there, and also what equipment?
From Boston specifically, so Boston, where Boston plays a role is the command center, the rescue and coordination center, is here in Boston. The aircraft that are coming in are coming from different locations, but the command structure is being worked out of Boston. And I think we have time for two more questions.
In all your experience, just how unique is the Coast Guard ever?
Well, I don't want to speak about it if the Coast Guard is ever. I would tell you it's a unique operation, it's a challenging operation, but right now we're focused on putting everything we can at it and searching as hard as we can and getting assets out there as quickly as we can.
And so any private companies, other assets that are in question in the area, what sort of assets are they have?
Yeah, there are some additional assets with ROVs. There is one asset that is working to get on scene with a decompression chamber. So those are all pieces that are coming together, and we're working those logistical challenges to get them there. And I think we'll take one more. Well, I can't tell you exactly what it would look like. I would tell you that we are out there, we're searching. We wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be searching and putting all effort out there. I think that, if the sub is located, that's a question that then the experts need to look at what is the best course of action for recovering the sub. But I think it's going to depend on that.
Guys, I have it up as loudly as I can. I'm sorry, it's not, and it's a little bit scratchy also.
Sir, is it true that the British offered assistance and they were told we don't need your assistance at this point?
No, I'm not aware of that. Again, what I would tell you though is that the Unified Command is working through prioritizing. We know that there's equipment out there that can be brought to the scene. The Unified Command is working through prioritizing what equipment we need and then how we get it there.
And the French are also responding ship as well?
Yes, it's my understanding, correct. And I think we're going to wrap it there. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys coming out today. Blew this portion of the brief on there. I can stay behind just to take some additional stuff that maybe wasn't answered. We can try to get some information back to you kind of later. Yeah. Right. So the Rescue Coordination Center that he's talking about specifically, that's based in Boston. So the personnel that are working in the command and control environment, as far as building a lot of the search and rescue plans, sending out the information, coordinating those pieces, are here. The people affecting the mission, so the pilots, the air crews, all of the ships, those are based out of different areas. So our pilots, air crews are out of Elizabeth City, North Carolina. The Coast Guard cutter Sycamore, I believe, is out of Newport, Rhode Island, but they were operating already in the Arctic. So there are a number of people that are here working in that staff element, but are not physically located out in the search area, if that makes sense. It is, yes.
Does Oceangate have another submersible that they could try to send down there?
I don't know.
It sounds like, for the most part, the Swedish area.
I'm going to stop that. The person asked, they're not media trained because usually you have to repeat the question, right? So that everybody can hear, because the questions are very low. One of the people actually just asked if the company has another submersible, and he just said he doesn't know. But that's a great question. See if there's another submersible can go down there. All right, let me continue.
So I believe, a lot of it into I don't know.
It sounds like, for the most part, the Swedish area is moving to St. John.
So I believe, a lot of it into St. John, Newfoundland, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's so our aircraft is as well. So I know there is a number of pieces going out there. Logistically, it's easier as opposed to from here.
Transcom organizing the different assets available. I asked Transcom, and they didn't know what it does.
Okay.
So can you give a little bit more clarity on what kind of assets you have to put in the water? I specifically asked about the Curve 21.
Yeah.
Is there one on the way?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. So I know a lot of those questions were unanswered in there, and so a lot of it's because we're not the right agency to be asking that. I know as a fan, we should be to be able to give the answer to you, but we want you guys to hear from the subject matter experts. So that's our next plan. Is what we want to do is give an opportunity for you all to get all of the subject matter experts we can into one location to kind of get those questions answered. To give you kind of the best thing we can do.
You anticipated that was that becomes a recovery mission.
I'm sorry.
When those 40 hours
Yeah,
are up,
yeah.
is that the moment you shift from a search and rescue to a recovery operation if you choose to do it?
I think it really depends on a number of factors. So anything that could change between now and then, as far as information response, things like that could change that. So it's not a hard and fast, timer's up, it's time to transition. There's a lot of factors that
The reporter just asked if after the 40 hours of breathable air goes up, like when that's run out, does this go from being a search and rescue to a search and recovery? And he's answering and he's saying that, like between now and then, we need to know what information is available before he can give an answer. But that was actually a really good question. Let me see. I'm going to go onto the YouTube one and see if that one's better. Oh, wow. Holy moly. This is way better sound. Okay, so it's louder, but it also is more scratchy. So I don't know. I think I prefer it being louder though. Let me go back a minute. Oh wow, that's really low too. Oh, you guys, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I wasn't showing. Next time somebody needs to tell me. Oh, you're looking at my face. Okay, I'm gonna rewind then just a couple minutes so you can see that.
The nearest naval asset would be that has that lift capability, salvage capability. Is it coming from North Carolina, from Florida, from Boston? Can you give us any idea of how far away it might be?
No, I don't have an answer to that. Yeah.
Do you know if anybody, do you know if that vessel has a computer or some other way of communicating other than text?
For the research vessel?
The Titan itself.
Yeah. Oh, communicating with them? No,
Yeah.
I don't have specifics on technology on board.
We understand they've lost contact in the past on other expeditions. Has the Coast Guard ever been involved with them?
That's my knowledge.
But Ocean Gate is cooperating with the investigation.
Absolutely. They're part of the unified command in here, so we're all making decisions together.
So did they have anything else that could go down?
I don't know, but if they do, it's definitely being discussed as far as their capabilities.
Would they tell you if they did? I mean, so it doesn't sound like that, to be honest.
I don't understand.
Like, it sounds like the nearest vessel that it's not clear how long it would take to get a vessel there.
And that's just the biggest part of the challenge of all of this, is trying to understand how the capabilities are working together, how they would do it, the technical aspect of that.
So if your family member is going to be on board,
I think it was clearly stay with Captain Frederick on there.
Could you just describe, the crushed depth here? We're talking about 400 times, as I understand it, what we experience at sea level. What can that do to a vessel?
I can't speak to the scientific side of that. Again, this is just more or less trying to get some background information for you guys on there. I don't have any of that information on that.
Can you tell us about what the circumstances, what people left this submersible doesn't necessarily, it goes in for a dive and bobs right back up. It's not supposed to be there for that long. Is there?
And that would be a great question that we could try to get answered for you with that subject matter expert discussion.
So it sounds like they're going to try to get another press conference with the different subject matter experts. I'm not sure why they didn't do that. I guess maybe because it's Tuesday and the efforts just began yesterday, but I would hope that they would have had something like this already so that multiple people can, because this is happening with Canadian and there's French involved and there's UK military involved. So it's interesting that it's just coming right now from the US.
That we talked about to get an opportunity for you guys to ask that question, because it'd be much more important and realistic for somebody within that community part of the command that would be able to answer that question a lot clearer than anything I would be able to. So
when might you provide your next update?
So we do have a press release that's going to be going out shortly with the graphics we talked about. Probably similar information to what was passed today. If any new information comes up, we'll update that. But I think ideally we'd be putting out press releases daily, and would look at probably doing another briefing tomorrow.
Can I just ask you one last?
All right, let's hold. I don't know.
Could you just reiterate for us? How big of an urgency is this for the Coast Guard? How big of a priority? Do you prioritize these things? In other words, do you classify them as priority red, 1, 2, 3? How big of a priority is this?
This operation is our top priority right now. Within the district, we have every available asset that we can that's to this, that we can dedicate to it on this. That's why we are spending so much time and energy trying to coordinate really this enormous response effort to truly understand the scale of how far away this truly is, and in the context of the types of assets that we can get out there over something that's that enormous, something larger than the state of Connecticut, into perspective of what is available to be able to search in those kind of conditions so far offshore. Understand, 900 miles looks like it is an enormous amount of distance.
I'm going to fix the vessel hull, but is a deep sea rescue effort realistically what is happening?
I don't know what it would look like. Realistic, and that's all part of the conversation in the Flight Command. They're looking at doing everything that they can to find out the options that are available.
Excellent.
And family members have indicated the 5 people on board. Is there an official manifest or log saying exactly who was on that vessel?
There is
Will that
on
be
there.
released publicly?
So not until all the necessary notifications have been completed through that process can we release names in that way. I know that some have gotten out, but they have not been through us.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you. And we'll send out an update when the next advisory or advisory will be out for you guys.
Are there any briefings happening up in St. John's?
Not that I'm aware of. Nothing that we are setting up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they are up there. And I'm hoping that they would at least reach out to us to let us know so we can help kind of amplify that.
If the Canadians take over the on-site command out on the water, would then command move to St. John, or would it remain here? The ICC.
No, I think more or less what he's talking about with the ship being out there is they can actually control the assets that are physically on site as far as where they're going, less that the operation itself is in command. So it would be in here. So the resources to come up with all of those plans, come up with all of the search and rescue operation side, will likely always stay here. When we say like an on-scene commander, they're just the one that's on scene physically that can communicate with everyone to make sure that we're deconflicting airspace, that we're covering the right areas, that people are searching the
You
right
guys
spots.
collaborate every day, I'm guessing.
We do. This one's just especially challenging because you just add in an additional layer of distance, of time, of all those other elements with it.
So for the different asset questions, I was talking to this guy over Transcom. It's
not him, it's not you guys. Who has the ball? So is Dean going out?
So no, I think it was just it's likely we just probably disconnect there with communicating with their health affairs folks. That's the really challenging part of happening right now. Is normally response operation, everybody's working, and there is a weird set for us here. Everybody else is in Canada, so we're just having this challenge.
So he's still answering some questions. I'm going to see if there's anything else he answers here.
So let me see what I can get.
Yeah,
because that's not.
Yeah, because like the underwater like salvage folks that work are probably good for like the remote vessel questions. But I think the guidance they're getting from Jinko is like go to the Coastguards.
And so that's with the Navy. Sorry, what was your question, Greg?
Yeah.
No, who you originally asked?
So I just dropped the link. If anybody, especially if Hannah, if you're still here, you're welcome to join me. We'll just recap here for a few minutes. You're welcome to join me, and you can just click on that StreamYard link, and I can bring you up if you'd like, and we can chat about it. Especially Hannah, if you're there in Newfoundland and you know kind of what's going on down there in the scene, I'd love to chat with you. So wow, okay. Like Ernesto said, I'm going to pull up his quote again. It's all very weird about this case. It is incredible that in 2023, a submersible suddenly disappears without being able to track with all the available technology. Wild. Okay. So I'm going to just pull back up share my screen again and just do one last little update here from this CNN actually did pretty well. Pretty good job of recapping. So they said the Coast Guard is working around the clock to conduct complex search for missing submersible. The Titanic Tour sub-search efforts have not yielded any results. I know that they have searched the area of approximately the size of Connecticut, which is a U.S. state for those who aren't in the United States, on the northeast coast of the United States. So that's a large area that they have searched. They've done surface searches, and they have started doing subsurface searches, so underwater searches as well. And on the particular equipment, I'm not sure exactly what they're using. There was one mention that they're going to do a ROB dive, but I'm not exactly sure what that means, what that stands for. And if anybody knows what that stands for, ROB, I think was the acronym, a ROB dive, let me know. And I did a search for that and I couldn't find anything on that. Now, this is the really, really interesting part. He said that there is about 40 hours of breathable air left. That's at best case scenario. That's like if there's up to the 96 hours, right? Because they dove starting at 9 a.m. on Sunday. So then you've got, Monday, that's 24 hours, Tuesday, 48 hours. And then, so if it's 96 hours, then it would be about somewhere between 40 or so hours of breathable air left. So that is very, very interesting. And one of the reporters asked if after 40 hours has passed, if it becomes a search and recovery effort rather than a search and rescue, right? Because then it would be assumed that they wouldn't be alive. So that's really interesting. I mean, and also, I mean, it's kind of morbid to say, but if somebody on the ship, assuming everybody is alive and the ship is, and the vessel is intact, that there could be some that would sadly pass away before others, and maybe that would allow others to have more air. I don't know. It's very morbid to say, and I guess we don't want to go there too much. We don't want to dive too deeply into that. At this point, let's just pray they are found in the next 24 hours and they're able to lift up the vessel. One of the reporters did also ask about whether or not the UK had the UK ship, the Magellan ship, was not allowed to enter into the search, as that Mirror article said. So he said he didn't know anything about that. So if that's the case, more than likely that maybe that's not completely accurate. Okay, so What else did he say? Yeah, those were the big pieces. They've done a Connecticut-sized search. They're doing subsurface and subsurface. They're going to do a rob dive in sometime in the next day. They've got ships coming in from different parts between the U.S. and Canada to continue the search. They've got a ship coming in from France that's going to do underwater. Let me see if we can go back to that. What it said here. France sends a ship with underwater robot. That will be good. That will be a really great asset here to look underwater. One thing that it just occurred to me, why, wouldn't the vessel have some type of like a camera or something like that? Maybe that was cut off too, but it's just interesting to think, that would have helped to see at least where they were if that was available. All right, everyone, what are your thoughts? I know I'll pull back up Ernesto's. It's very weird. It's incredible that in 2023, Submersible suddenly disappears with a billionaire in it. And I don't know the other, there's a Pakistani businessman in there. If he's able to spend $500,000 between himself and his son to go on this mission, then he probably is very wealthy as well. Wow. Okay. Let's pull up one more time. Let's see if the CNN has anything else. They've done a really good job of kind of having up to speed information. And all right. So looks like that's up to this minute on their part. And I will continue to put out some information if there's any other advisory or any other presser that comes out. I'll let you know. I'll post again about this. And yeah, let's just continue to keep the people in the ship, in the vessel, in our thoughts, our prayers for their families, and see what else the authorities can do. I mean, I kind of go back to, why wasn't there another contingency in place? Why aren't there other measures in place to make sure that this doesn't happen, right? Like, if you got to make that ticket a little extra expensive, another $250,000, so that you have, let's say, a Coast Guard ship or a ship that has the ability to go down, or get a second submersible on hand as a contingency, have that available, make the price tag a little more expensive. But this should not be, we shouldn't be relying on military personnel to save a private submersible, right? Like that, the contingency should be already in place. That should be, that should be the plan B, the backup, not the military. The Coast Guard should be like plan D, E, F, right? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Anyways, before I leave, if anyone else wants to just come up real quick and share your thoughts, I did drop a link to the StreamYard. You can come up. We could chat for a couple of minutes. And if you haven't already, all that money and nobody put a GPS device on this, right? Exactly. Right? Because they're using a remote control to get to the location. I mean, I don't understand. There should be some manual control in place to have as a contingency, as a backup. The other thing is, and I don't know if you were here earlier, Rival, but the ship is being like, it's bolted from the outside. So based on what the reports were saying, there isn't any way for them to even be able to get out. So assuming the ship went up to the surface and was, let's say, 1,000 miles away from this location, they wouldn't, in theory, be able to get out and breathe regular air because they're bolted from the outside. Like, you'd think that there would be some other measures, some manual measures in place. I mean, I think even spaceships have a lot of manual measures in place, because you're in space and you don't have anyone else around, right? The same thing should be underwater. There should be some other manual things in place, at the very least a GPS. So I don't understand how they were able, like, their way of getting to the site was communicating by text message with the people on the surface. That to me, just, like you said, all that money. Anyway, all right. Well, since nobody's come up, I will do a recap. Hopefully, let's see if we can do GPS can't work at that depth. Okay, I'm not that familiar with that, but there should, you'd think. So if GPS can't work, I guess GPS, because that is oh shoot, that's satellite, right? So then if that doesn't work, then how are they getting text messages? What technology are they using to get text messages? So they were communicating through text messages, but they aren't able to get GPS. I don't know. Nobody's really explained that very well. If the, okay. Hopefully, when they put together this presser with other subject matter experts, there will be a technology expert that can share, can discuss those intricacies and those details, so that we can have a better understanding to make this type of thing in the future safer. There are radio waves that submarines use that can send signals at any depth. I don't mean GPS. Okay. Right. And so that's the difference between, this is not a submarine. This is a submersible. A submersible is not meant to be underwater for so long. So it's not text with the cell phone. I did read, though, I thought it said something about that they did have internet, but I don't know what type of service that was. I read this like a couple of days ago, so I wasn't sure what type of service they were getting. That would be really interesting to have somebody actually talk about all the different types of technology that they're using. I mean, they're using remote control. So it was very, very interesting. Okay, guys. Well, if you haven't yet, please hit the thumbs up so that we can get this out to more people, and more people will see it after I end the live. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you subscribe. I like to cover true crime from a more empowering, more empathetic, and there's more of a compassionate angle, more victim focused, not all the drama. And I do usually cover a lot of missing persons cases and other popular true crime cases. So if you haven't yet subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you did. And look out for more on this case. If there is another advisory or oppressor, I will definitely be covering it. And okay, with that, have an amazing day. Stay safe, stay thriving. Always follow your intuition and keep it empowering. All right, everyone. Bye for now. Take care. Bye.